Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode we're looking at an indie shoot 'em up that has been making waves on Steam and recently got its long awaited console port. We're checking out Super XYX, developed in conjunction by Team Grybanser Fox G-System, published by Soft, releasing to Steam in 2020 and arriving on consoles in October of 2024. This shoot 'em up has several notable influences and his team is clearly well versed in the genre. So before we bang on too much more, let's check out the story. The story goes a bit like this. The XYXian world eaters have began attacking Earth by turning its own military technology against humanity. The United Earth Defense Force dispatches two pilots, the Green Knight and Hell Tiger, to embark on a journey to save the human race and take back their weaponry. Their battle will jump through several dimensions and even alternate galaxies to stop the XYXian technological takeover. Let's prepare to attack aggressively. Gameplay-wise, you've got a 2D vertical shoot 'em up that has the look and feel of Genesis and PC Engine era games. You start with two crafts, being the Green Knight and Hell Tiger, and can unlock 4 more craft by completing in-game challenges and clearing the game itself. You got a primary fire mode alongside screen clearing bombs and can engage your braking by holding the left trigger for more precise movement. The unlockable crafts like the Cobra, Taurus Alpha, Yellow Jacket, and Carrotizer all provide extra weaponry and each is very powerful once upgraded. You can get upgrades for firepower and your options, both of which have several levels before reaching their max. You can also change the fire direction of your options by hitting the right trigger, which will change and lock the firing axis. If you take a hit, you lose a ship, and your weapon and option levels will drop. While you can recover, taking a lot of hits, especially by the Galaxy Battle stage, will quickly have you seeing game over. You'll blast your way through 6 stages, taking down anything that moves and avoiding all hazards. Chaining enemies together will increase your score and enemies will drop medals you can collect. The trick with the medals is to try to grab them in between downing enemies and really increase your score and add time to your combo counter. Getting through each stage without being hit also gives you massive bonuses with multipliers each consecutive stage you make it through. If you can get through the first 3 stages without getting hit and clicking a key, you can access the game's special level known as the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is a boss rush that features more difficult versions of bosses you see throughout the game, buffing their attacks and at times numbers. Getting clears without completing the Gauntlet will have separate endings and paths. If you can complete the Gauntlet and get to the last 3 levels on 1 credit, you'll get to the game's true last boss, the Black Serpent. You'll have 3 continues to complete all stages, otherwise it's game over and back to the start. Once you clear the arcade mode, you'll unlock new modes like the Boss Rush, Gauntlet, and Super Arcade mode, which is the caravan mode of the game, with longer and more difficult stages. These get insane after a point, and along with the game's arcade mode, there's plenty to digest in unlocking all the secrets and challenges. The gameplay moves at a steady clip from the jump, and getting those no-miss bonuses are rewarding, especially if you can manage the entire game without getting hit. And if you want more of a challenge, the Gryzar mode turns on one-hit deaths and checkpoints instead of the immediate respawns. Enemies will come into the frame from multiple angles, and when they come from the bottom of the screen, a warning indicator will appear. Bullet patterns and enemy placements will get pretty spicy towards the midway point of the game, but it does stick to convention when it comes to the combat. Bullet hurting will be a valuable tactic to control crowds and set up combo chains, and dodging patterns in the latter half of the game will be very important. Boss encounters at the end of each stage will ramp up in difficulty fairly quick, and by stage 3 you'll be getting bombarded and introduced to new attack patterns with each damage phase. Bosses can be defeated quickly if you have a lot of bombs, but you can also put in a pretty good amount of work with your primary fire if you want to conserve them. The final encounters with the Exalted and the Black Serpent are both gnarly battles, and the first few times you will definitely get smoked here, but once you figure out their patterns, you'll conquer the World Eaters. Graphics-wise, Super XYX was developed with Game Maker, and this looks awesome with its retro aesthetic. The hard pixelated look of the sprites feels like a callback to the graphics of the Genesis and Mega Drive, with a dash of PC Engine and Windows PCs to balance out the mix. The levels start off basic, but quickly become more intricate by the time you get to stage 3 and beyond. Super XYX is a very stylish shoot 'em up, and you can tell as you play just how many influences the development team were inspired by. Stages go by at a steady clip and have a decent amount of things you can interact with in the environment. Once you get to the second act of the game, environments become way more detailed and visually dynamic. The Alien Hive, Galaxy Battle, and Hellfire are all really sick-looking levels, all with their own themes and events that make them stick out amongst the others. Character sprites and crafts are inspired by several shoot 'em up franchises, and the pilots will clue you in as to what games they represent, which is a nice touch. Each craft has their own fire pattern, and once fully upgraded will fill the screen with bullets. Crush attacks are also rather spectacular, which are also callbacks to several franchises, even including a Toe Planet Skull Bomb for a couple pilots. The HUD has a wealth of info and it displays your character, score, current stage, number of medals, lives, crush bombs, and combo counter. The breakdown screens at the end of each stage will show the amount of medals you got during the stage and bonuses achieved. The neon colors of each screen, as mentioned earlier, are often very bright, and the colors often pulse with intensity that gives the game a very interesting look. Bullet patterns are going to be all over the shop, and you'll see all the greatest hits. The nice thing here is that projectiles coming from the bottom of the screen will have indicators, along with the Dragon Matriarch having indicators for its curved sharp barrage. Shots are also very bright here and hard to miss with their often fluorescent coloring, and a lot of the colors on the screen almost seem to vibrate as you move, belong, and it makes it a little bit easier to keep track of even when everything is going ape on screen. Boss designs are pretty awesome here, and even the basic ones have some sick animations from their entrances to their damage indicators. Bosses are an assortment of influences from the more toe plan and Technosoft style mechanical foes to the more Namco and Saikyo fantasy creations. The Gauntlet serves up some variants of a few bosses and has the Maze Eye at the end, which is a sick encounter. The Exalted and Black Serpent final bosses are two of the most eye-popping battles in the game, going through multiple damage phases and attack patterns. Each pilot has their own ending cutscene, some being more serious than others, though each is triumphant, especially if you have the true last boss clear, where the Ward Eater leader drops some almost prophetic knowledge to your pilot. These coupled with unlocking each additional pilot to see their endings and the true last boss encounter certainly gives you incentive to play through the game numerous times, going for better scores and to just see everything. Sound-wise, Super XYX is excellent with its awesomely energetic FM soundtrack and audio work. Composer Karina lays down some masterful riffs throughout the game, keeping the energy hype as you blast every Ward Eater you can. From the first to the last chord, this soundtrack rules, and you can hear the metal influence inspired by the classic Technosoft tunes. The music will keep you jamming as you play, and the game audio is just as sick. Shot and explosion sound effects work is also great here, with some proper crunch with each down. The impact sounds of bigger mechanical enemies kind of reminds me of Mercs from the Genesis, and once you battle the more organic enemies, they have a more resonant sound, similar to what you would hear on the Super Nintendo for something like Biometal. The more you play, the more you'll kind of pick out where sound design choices came from, and all of which are pretty awesome. Overall, Super XYX is one of the most fun shoot 'em ups I've played in a while, and for it being an indie production that came from Steam to console, it gives hope that more things like this will do the same. You can tell as you play just how much the developers are about the genre, and it shows through and through with an awesome experience that keeps you saying just one more game. While it's not perfect, it's undeniable how fun it is. And even with the slowdown in parts, where it gets graphically intense, Super XYX plays very well. For being a $10 game, you get an exponential amount of gameplay out of it that shoot 'em up fans will likely enjoy. Super XYX gets an 8 out of 10 and comes recommended to fans of vertical shooters and arcade-style games that have that early toe plan train of thought where you'll need to learn the game before getting everything out of it. This is a great game to learn the finer points of shoot 'em ups for beginners while also serving up a sturdy challenge for the more experienced players. It's going to smoke you a few times regardless, but it's never to the point of frustration and more of a motivator to unlock the new modes and characters. This is also an easy recommendation for indie game and shoot 'em up fans out there, and certainly a reason to keep an eye out for Team Grybanser Fox in the future. This is available on Steam alongside all modern consoles digitally, and if a physical version of this releases in the future, it's a certified pickup whenever that happens. And I thank you again if you made it this far into the video. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome, glad you use it as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.